the last thing I remember, I was in New Orleans at a business convention, and I've got ticket stubs here showing I flew to Rome, Italy. And I don't have any business in Rome, Italy. You know, what happened? And he said, you know, this was a crisis, and I used that to get the man headed toward treatment. And we set up a date for him to come in. This was a Friday. He was to come in Monday with his clothes. And he didn't show up. And several months went by. And he had another crisis. And they brought him into treatment, and he said, hey, John, why didn't you come in last time? What do you mean last time? When he was in telling about this terrifying experience of having gone to Rome, Italy, and not knowing about it, he was at that time in an alcoholic blackout. When those things happen to you, let me tell you, they are scary. One of the common things that you'll hear in AA is someone telling about the experiences of waking up and being terrified to go out and look at the car because they don't know whether they've hit anybody or not. The last they remember, they were sitting having a drink of a Friday afternoon like they always did. And it's Monday morning. And the whole thing is blank. Okay? And originally, up here, these blackouts come after I drink an awful lot. Okay? When I get down into this using the feel normal stage, when I really start progressing further and further in this disease, they are totally unpredictable. So that if I have 2 beers right now, Joe Hurt, me, I might black out. Or I might drink an awful lot and not happen to it. It's totally unpredictable. Okay. The tolerance that I've built in this stage suddenly breaks down. You know, whereas I could drink my 5th a day, now I might drink a couple of drinks, either black out or go psychotic. And when I say go psychotic, I mean classic psychosis. I mean when the person is totally lost touch with reality. You know, it's not just doing things that are out of character for him. He's doing crazy things. Bedbug crazy things. You may not think it's particularly weird to go out at high noon in your shorts and try to chop down 200 feet of redwood fence. But I think it's kind of strange, and I guarantee you my neighbors thought it was strange. See? And with those people, the only thing you can do is put them where I was put. In a rubber room. And bring them down. Because they're psychotic. That's chemically induced. Which means that, you know, once the chemical is out of the body, the person's no longer psychotic, nor will they necessarily become psychotic again. You know, but in that time, they're psychotic. Crazy. Rubber room crazy. At this point, the physical addiction is pretty complete then. You know, so that when I stop using my chemical, I get into a lot of physical trouble. If I've been drinking a 5th of whiskey a day for X months or years, and I suddenly stop that chemical, I had better be under medical supervision because I could very easily die. See? The body is demanding my chemical. My neurochemical pathways to my heart and to my motor nerves and to my perceptual nerves are going to start doing weird and funny things. See? And then I'm physically addicted to the point that I must have medical help to be brought down. Cold turkey is madness. Just madness. It's dangerous. And it really doesn't matter what the chemical is, although alcohol and morphine or opium-derived chemicals are probably the most dangerous in terms of withdrawal, but I don't want to get into medical, technical aspects of it. Okay, at this point also, I'm very paranoid. I don't trust anybody. My whole world is one of delusions. You know, and there's a part of me that's functioning, you know, in a more or less normal way. I may be going to work every day and doing what I'm supposed to do. But everybody around me becomes a thing of suspicion. But the cleverest, most manipulative people in the world are chemically dependent people, and I'll hide that. I'll just be watching you carefully. Because I know you're out to get me. And the reason why I know that, you know, the reason why this is happening to me is I'm projecting what is becoming the central element of my emotional being, and that element is I don't like me. I can't stand me anymore. But if I really looked at me, I would take my life. The pain is so great. The things that I've done are so bad. You know, and I don't mean that I might have gone and driven my car through 18 stores in the mall or run stark naked down Hay Street. I don't mean necessarily those things, although I might have done those things. But what has been happening to those that I care about, the lie that I'm living, there is no such thing as being an honest, chemically dependent person. They're mutually exclusive terms. Absolutely mutually exclusive. Why? Well, I can't function all the time, and so I've got to call the boss and say, you know, the bug's hit me again. I'll be out a few days. Okay, take care of yourself. Right. I start doing things like that. Or I'm confronted by a significant person in my life. I thought you told me you weren't going to drink anymore. Only had 2 beers. For Pete's sake, are you going to get on to me because I just had 2 beers? Come on. Also, I've begun to stash. Begun to make sure that I'm never out of my chemical. The horrors of waking up and forgetting it's election day. And there's nothing open. Okay. So I'm doing dishonest things. My whole life's a lie. My whole life is a lie. And so I don't trust you. How the heck can I? You know, I got to put it off on somebody else. That's the only way I can survive. Mind you now, defense mechanisms are not recognized by me, or they don't work. Okay? They don't work. When my defense mechanisms, however, come locked in down here and become what we call pathological, you can't talk me out of them. Okay? Now, if I rationalize about something I've done, and you're my friend, and you say, oh, come on, Joe. What really happened is you just didn't take enough pains to remember to do something, and you forgot it, and now, you know, you've come up with all these reasons why you didn't do it. You say, well, all right, yeah, you're right. And rationalization doesn't work anymore, and I have to take my lumps, my emotional lumps. You cannot talk the chemically dependent person out of his rationalization or his projections. You can't break through those defense mechanisms. That's what makes this disease so tough to get at. Because they become pathological. My rationalization and my projections, my minimizing, only had a couple. What do you mean I'm drinking too much? Drinking like everybody else. That may even be true. Everybody in my acquaintance drinking like I do. I've lost the ability to judge what I'm doing in terms of any kind of rational standard. About this time, I began to figure out, you know, I got a problem. Something's not going right. I'm beginning to get a few hints. Maybe I've policed up 3 or 4 DUIs, or I've lost a couple of jobs, or family members start leaving. You know, I could have lost my home, everything. But rather than look at the real reason, now this will seem incredible to people that have never been in the trap of chemical dependency. You set this person down and you say, look, John, you're drinking yourself to death, man. No, that's not the problem. Then John will sit down and tell you all the reasons why he's drinking. They make a lot of sense there. At your hospital, I went over, was asked to go over and speak to a man there that was there. The man had been told by his doctor, you're going to die if you drink anymore. They were transporting him the next day to Duke Hospital. He couldn't even get out of his bed except in a wheelchair. You know, the effects of drinking over 25 years had absolutely just about wiped his body out, and he spent an hour telling me how drinking wasn't his problem. The doctor's crazy. And he began to tell you some physical problems. They were real. You know, that was what had happened, all right. What he was totally unable to see was the connection between the drinking and the physical problems he had. Now, that may seem incredible to you, but believe me, that's the way chemically dependent people think. They can't hook up things. It's the real reason why he's like he is. So they began the geographical cures. Okay. And they're incredible sometimes. I woke up once after I'd retired from the Army, and things just weren't going well. I was living here in town, and the reason why I ended up in Fayetteville, I was so alcoholic, I didn't know where to go. That's the honest to God's truth. I did not know where to go. So I just ended up here. I'm awfully glad I did, but it was just happenstance, I got to tell you. And I got a house full of little boys, you know, and I woke up one morning and I had the solution to all our problems. The problem was Fayetteville and Cumberland County. See? Who could not have problems around here? The whole darn county's a bunch of drunks. Besides, militaries, I don't want anything to do with them anymore. They retired, and I was only 42. The fact that everybody retired at about that age, if they were reserve officers, escaped me totally. You see, I was trying to fix flames while all these things were happening to me. So I called the guys in. Hey, guys, yeah, Dad. I know things haven't been very good around here, but I got the answer. Got to get out of here. Oh, yeah, where are we going, Dad? Thought we might go up to Alaska and homestead. You know, I can still see these little guys' eyes cutting around. I said, all we need is a chainsaw, guys, you know, enough supplies to get us through till winter. We'll have us a cabin up. And, you know, it made a lot of sense to me. It really did. And I just figured out, you know, I got to get out of here. I got to go somewhere where I'm on my own. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Geographical cures. I may leave my marriage. You'd have to drink, too, if you was married to her. Nobody can stay sober around that wink. One of my nicer names, I might call it. Hey. Or, who could, you know, see, the guy I work for, you don't understand this guy. He's on me all the time. I want to leave that job, that's all wrong. See? So those are my geographical cures. Now, as I get down in this point, you know, I'm spiritually bankrupt. Okay, I'm totally isolated from my world and its value system. If I've got any feeling about any power greater than me, I'm separated in totally lost from him, or it, or whatever. My idea of what God or a great other or whatever, it's you know, gone. And if there's anything there, I'm terrified of it. So I'm going to hide. I don't know whether we have it burned out. Yes. There is for you in the handout, there is a list of symptoms of chemical dependency. And they separate kind of, I've separated out alcoholism and drug addiction because they have a few dynamics that are different, but not in the general development or recovery. I mean, it's the same for all of them, but the way it manifests itself, so I'll let you, I won't go over those in any great detail at this time. of what the symptoms are, because I've kind of covered them as we went down. Except broadly, there's a growing preoccupation, there's a growing need for a chemical during times of stress, where I used to would have kind of muscle my way through or kind of stand up and take it. I'll start. Once I find out, remember, it always works. It always works. You know, there's a very legitimate use of a tranquilizer, let's say, or a mood elevator in times of great stress, death in the family, a great loss, life overwhelms me. But the average person who works through this loss or this stress situation will stop the chemical. He won't use it anymore. But the chemically dependent person has found that it always works.
When you reach stage 4, you don't want the euphoria anymore, right? No more euphoria.
No more euphoria. There's no fun in it anymore. Ever. In a few minutes, I'm going to talk about the delusional memory system, and we're going to talk about a phenomenon called euphoric recall. But no, you're absolutely right. As I get out into this further stage, I never get up and hear it all. In fact, the only way I can get back up to normal in my feelings at all is to be using something. See? To be using something. What can you look for? A person that's preoccupied with chemicals. If you start getting attuned to and honed to this, you'll spot it in a heartbeat. You know? A growing rigidity of lifestyle. There's a particular time for drinking. There's a self-imposed rules, limits of social activities, those which involve drinking. I'm kind of summarizing now. There's a growing tolerance. Then there's the loss of control. You know, a person that you've been seeing for years as a friend and perhaps a parishioner, all of a sudden, here's a guy that's been drinking socially for 20 years. All of a sudden, he loses control over it. You know. And, you know, if I get picked up, you know, I'm a person that's been fairly productive all my life, and I'm a law-abiding, quote-unquote, law-abiding citizen, you know, and all of a sudden things like that start happening to me. Hey, that's a sure sign. You've got a problem. You know, this person can't recognize it, but as a pastor, you can. Because I guarantee you, when we start talking about what happens to the family, the spouse can't recognize it. Why? Because she starts being a mirror image of him. But the reason why I always love to talk to pastors is because you are almost always the first person to see chemical dependency in a family. Chemical dependency is called a family disease, and believe me, it is a family disease. And what usually happens is somebody desperately needs a counselor, pastor, somebody. And if you know what you're looking for, you know, and you ask the right questions, you know, it may well be that the spouse is coming in about a child that's driving the family crazy. See? Now, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and say this. Chemical dependency in the family is the family secret. It's the family secret. It's the family secret. They'll tell you almost anything about the family if they're close to you and you know, you've got their trust. Except that. You have to be alert for it. We'll talk about what to look for a little bit more. But that loss of control, and in case of the family, we have broken promises and drunks during family rituals like Christmas and birthdays. And, we have fights where used to you had a gentle and calm person. All of a sudden, the guy's a monster. The woman's a monster. Might be wrong. Threats of divorce and like. And legally, the person starts getting drunken disorderly charges or DUIs or lawsuits that are caused by impaired judgment. People in blackouts will make deals. Or they'll do bizarre things like commit themselves for money they don't have and like that. They don't realize they're doing it. Really don't realize that. If I can't get anything else across, let me get across a couple of points. One, willpower has nothing to do with the recovery from chemical dependency. Repeat, willpower ain't where it's at. Believe me, if I could have willpowered my way out of the agony I was in, I would have been sober one heck of a lot longer, sooner than I was. Nobody would live like a chemically dependent person lives if he had any choice in the matter.
Are you saying that after he had become a chemically dependent person, he did have a choice previously?
But he was not he will say he can stop whenever he chooses. I don't have a problem. But he would say he's got willpower.
How far do you have to go in these stages to be that point of no return?
Well, I think when you get down into the harmful dependency stage, it's a matter of time. And, it's easier, if for sure. At one time they thought that the only way anybody got any help, given these aspects of the disease, an old lady had said, "Guys got to bottom out. Got to lose it all, or you're not going to get any help."
That was the early days, but now they say you get off on the floor. But on this business about will, one of the guys that I getting to like trying to control diarrhea.
Yeah, try to willpower your way out of diarrhea, right?
I want to go back to something you said about a pastor recognizing the disease. All right, suppose after all these years dealing with drunks, they're drunk so they don't put me in. I recognize it. So what?
We're going to talk about intervention.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. In my opinion, and I think I'm certainly not, this is not unique to me, the treatment team consists of a therapist and medical staff and a pastor. That's the best team. There's no question in my mind about it. Remember, we're talking about spiritual bankruptcy.
But doesn't the person have to want that treatment before they can?
Yeah. You got to cut him off the path,
I
though.
mean, you go pop it in there and you're going to get your head handed to you on a platter.
On a platter.
Sometimes they'll tell you your mind going business.
Oh, in a heartbeat.
It's not cool there.
Listen, let me tell you, the most belligerent people in the world are chemically dependent people. What do you mean I'm a drunk? Are you kidding me? Then you got to be like St. Paul to go into a drunk's house. A lot of fear and trembling there, But what we've learned, and I was saying, we used to think you had to bottom out. You had to lose it all. And you weren't going to get any help until you did. And what we've discovered is that at any one of these stages, we can intervene successfully if it's done skillfully. And we've got one whole period of time when we'll talk about intervention, crisis intervention. But the sooner along these deteriorating steps and in its aggressiveness of this disease that we get into the picture, the more successful we're going to be and the easier it's going to be for the person to go into real, genuine recovery. Okay? Now, every aspect of the alcoholic's life or the chemically dependent person's life starts being affected. But usually the last thing to go is the job, though. Why? Everybody swings in to protect the job.
Well, I think the best work you have when it's sober.
Well, it might well be, but I mean, the family unit, friends, I mean, you know, the lengths we go for alcoholics is incredible to save the job. The lengths that a, you know, that a supervisor will go to save the man you're talking about, Pastor, who is, you know, boy, when he's got it together, he's really good. And, you know, he's got to go a long way down before the reduction in efficiency, you know, equals what he can do when he's really off. Okay. And so, you know, and also, what does the job represent for the family? Well, it represents security for one thing. It also represents status. It's the only thing you're hanging on to, for heaven's sake. You know, and it doesn't matter what he's doing. He may be building tires, he may be digging ditches, he may be president of a company. But it's all they got to hang their hat on. See, and that's usually the last thing to go. You'd think it'd be the first, but it really isn't, because everybody protects it.
Well, even the drunk protects it, so you've got to have money to buy this stuff.
Sure. Costs a lot of money to stay drunk. A lot of money. Okay. These defense mechanisms that I mentioned, primarily rationalization and projection, are powerful. But then we go into the thing that Vern Johnson calls the delusional memory system. Okay, a few basics. And this is something I'm sure that pastors you've asked. How can this drunk, in the face of all the destructive symptoms, deny that he's got a problem with him? It just seems incredible if you can. I mean, how could they not see they've got a problem? The whole world's turning to, you know, to just bad stuff. And yet they're saying, you know, you're wrong. Not that at all. You don't understand. Okay. The reason is because almost everybody has a basic trust of his memory. Right? You know, you don't touch a hot stove because way back when you learned that that hurts. And we trust our memories. Our current decisions and our behavior are based upon our memories of past interactions and decisions that we've made. For heaven's sakes, that's how we, you know, come out of the cradle and go right on into whatever it is we are. That's how you got here today. You know, you remembered that there was a seminar going on, and for whatever reason, you wanted to find out whatever it is we were talking about. And that's how you got here. But a chemically dependent person starts trusting a memory system, we all do, it's full of great big holes. It's like Swiss cheese. But he's deluded and doesn't realize that he's trusting a faulty memory system. I talked about blackouts and the unpredictability of them, but the strange thing about blackouts is I don't know they've happened. I don't know they've happened. And if you say, hey, listen, I caught you in a situation that was so dangerous that if I hadn't been there, you'd have died. You laugh at the person. No. I wouldn't climb on top of the Wachovia building and walk along the parapet at midnight. Are you insane? Well, that's what you were doing, Sam. Get out of here. I wouldn't do anything like that. Yeah, and you can't break through that. You guys just wouldn't do anything like that. Who would? Unless I'm crazy and blacked out. Okay. So those blackouts get in there, but then there's a little trick that happens. Let's say I go to a social function, and I'm kind of progressed down in my disease. And here's a guy now that's always been a model of decorum, you know. And all of a sudden, I start doing rather bizarre things. I tell some off-color jokes, and the pastor's there, or I go around and snap the boss's wife's bra. You know, I just do things that are out of character for me. I make a pass at every woman there, and the next morning, when I'm up starting to shave, and the first inkling of all the things I've done last night that starts creeping in my conscious memory, the door's shut. I just wipe it out. That's not blackout. That's repression. Too painful to look at. So I diddly bop downstairs, and I'm sitting there, walking into the kitchen where my wife is. And the silence is painful. It's cold in the room. I say, what's wrong with you? What do you mean, what's wrong with me? It's last night. What do you mean, last night? See? And if you try to confront the man of what he's done, he just blocks that out in his memory. Now, you can bring that back up, in an intervention, when you start cornering the alcoholic and telling him the things he's done. These will creep back in the memory. It's not like a blackout. That's gone forever. But that repression is so powerful and so quick and so instantaneous that my delusional memory system, you see, I don't remember those things. I don't remember them because it's too bloody painful to remember. I just wipe it out.
Don't you tend to remember those when you thought the rest of them maybe at the time?
I'm sorry?
Don't you tend to remember things on all the negative things you did back to you at the time? In response to what it was you did.
Oh yeah, that will come part of my delusional. Like I say, you start getting paranoid, say, that's the best. I'm not going there anymore. There's a bunch of weird people. I'm not going back there anymore.
Well, doesn't every time you get drunk, don't you have a lifetime of blackout?
No, not necessarily. Might pass out. But that just, I put enough drug in there to the chemical, anyhow, you've seen, I think you mentioned Father Martin Phillips, he gives a chemical formula for alcohol, ethanol, and the chemical formula for ether. There's only one molecule difference. So, it's the central nervous system. To depress it, I take enough of it, I will shut, I'll go down into the sleep stage of it. Take enough out of it, I'll shut the whole thing down, but I usually don't drink enough to kill me. Usually. Sometimes.
Usually the body will knock off before you kill you.
I just pass out. There was a case I remember back in '66, I believe it was. We had a pop blast out in 82nd, and this kid chug-a-lugged the fifth and died from it, But that was not normal drinking. Normal people don't chug-a-lug a fifth unless they're built up to that in terms of tolerance. They might. So I'm dealing with these blackouts. I'm dealing with this repression, this slamming the door. I'm dealing with rationalizations and projections. And what I have become is a person that's totally deluded about what's going on around me. This repression is I just don't remember this. I can't. Remember that the human psyche strives to stay free of pain and upright, figuratively. So stable. That's the way we're constructed. And these defenses that come into being are such as to keep me going, and if I were to, had these things taken away from me of a sudden and nothing put back, I'm going to cut my throat. Now that's how serious it is. If I got a real look at me, I couldn't take it anymore. And when the person reaches that point, it's such a spiral. See? When I've gotten into stage 3, when I use my chemical, I'm doing things that are so opposed to my value system, and the pain is so great, what I do? I use what always works, which makes me do things that are so opposed to my value system that when I get up and I get the painful glimmer of what I am, I can't stand it, and I use some more, which makes me, you see where it's going? I'm spiraling downward in this thing. I'm drinking to feel normal. When I say I'm drinking to feel normal, I've got to have a chemical to keep from cutting my own throat. Because who I am and what I am has become more than I can bear. In this stage, you begin to hear people say, I'm no good. I'm no good. And if you've ever dealt with a man coming down or a woman, don't try to talk to them while they're drunk. It's like talking to the wall, except the wall can't talk back to you. But when a person, the best time to get to him is when he's in the agony of withdrawal. And you'll hear them say, I'm no good. The world would be better off without me. And that's not self-pitying talk. That's the way the person is feeling then. The most common phrase that we find in the evaluation of a chemically dependent person is the patient displays feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, and worthlessness. Right.
Did most suicides take place in a drunken state?
I think it's at some point where reality is not being blocked out with a chemical. It may be half on and half off. It may be coming down. Usually it's in the, you reach a point, Pastor, when you get so toxic that the body absolutely won't take anymore. It just won't take it. It'll come up. And the toxicity is so high that, the person is in grave medical trouble. And yet, when they start detoxifying, the body is screaming for more of the things, that's put them there to start with. And it's that hopeless feeling that there's no way out. No way out. You're so spiritually bankrupt. Don't call on God. Listen. If he was ever out there, right now he's in Mexico City and don't want to be involved with me. That's the way I feel about it. But quite likely I've decided that all that junk I was told, that wasn't true anyway. Remember, I'm deluded in the way I see the world. If there was a God, he wouldn't be letting this happen to me. Isn't that a strange one? Isn't that true separation? When I start doubting his existence, or his reality to me, or that he could have anything to do with me, Okay, repression. Now the person can go through the agonies of hell itself, lose everything he's got going for him. And one of the most deadly aspects of the delusional memory system comes into place, called euphoric recall. Euphoric recall. I forget every bad thing that's happened to me with all my drinking. And remember one thing. It always works. It always works. Just say, but how? How could the guy go spend 6 weeks at Fort Bragg Army Hospital, twice in Dorothea Diggs, twice in Peachtree Valley Hospital, Moore Memorial Hospital, 3 or 4 times in a detox center, and forget what's happened to him?
Now, this is not a fault to get working right now. This is true, shown up, I forgot it.
Now, if I call your attention to the fact that you've been there, we say in AA, alcohol is cunning, baffling, powerful. My disease is cunning, baffling, and powerful. The last time that I had the misfortune to go down with my chemical, the last thing in the world I was thinking about was getting drunk, believe me. I had a genuine case of a very bad intestinal problem. And the usual drugs that were given to me by my friendly doctor, and I don't mean to say that in any disparaging way, was compazine to control the nausea, and Lamodal to control the peristalsis, and the way it was going rampant. And the trouble is, I'm a chemically dependent person. I don't use anything rationally. Nothing. So if 2 of those little beauties would, every 4 hours would work, 2 of them every 2 hours must be twice as good. You know. And that's the last thing I remember. Somewhere in my alcoholic thinking, euphoric recall took over, and there's a way to treat this thing so I won't hurt so bad. Now, I don't have any conscious memory of any of that. One vague remembrance of pulling this 4,000 pounds of car, 5,000 back on the road. Okay. A lot of contusions. Beat up body. I have no idea what happened. Except that euphoric recall was in there. It always was. Makes you a little bit leery of drugs.
Before the recall is remembering the good times that the drug brought you.
Well, you know, even more than the good times, I think, is the fact that there's relief from this. I don't have to hurt this bad. See? And I forget that I can't drink anymore. You know. In the ceiling over my bed are 9 bullet holes. I don't fix them for deliberate reasons. Every time I wake up, I have to think to myself, Joe, you have a fatal illness. Would seem to be a good time to talk to, you know, your higher power a little bit this morning before you start the day. Now, rational, sane people don't blow holes in their ceiling. I don't have any remembrance of doing that. Except the house was full of kids. Could have just as easily been at this level rather than that level. God knows what monster was out there that I was shooting at. The combination of my defense mechanisms and my diluted memory system is what makes breaking into and treatment of this disease such a discouraging thing. You know, I find myself, I was out in Eastover. I was out in Eastover a few weeks ago. Well, this poor wretch, and he didn't have so much trouble. I found myself enraged at him. He's mad. Worthless, drunk. Poor little wife, poor wretched child. I had to back off and think, what am I doing? I'm talking about me. You know, I'm talking about a very sick person. A person that's going to die if he doesn't get some help. But I'll tell you, they'll drive you out of your mind. You know. And you can fall in the trap of being a professional enabler for them if you aren't careful, because they'll hook you. They'll hook you. They'll get you on their wavelength. Maybe believing that it's them that's causing the problem. Okay, I'm going to take a break. Any questions about this portion of it? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry I was late when you covered this earlier. In the trickle down, as you progress these phases, is there, let's say phase 2, you kind of can hang in there and hang in there and hang in there. Some people do this. I see symptoms of an individual I know, but it's not quite into the chronic.
You mean when you say hanging there, they can just drink and drink and drink and drink, or?
Well, they drink and drink, and you see some of the things like denial, they're unhappy, there's rationalization, there's blaming, other things. There is a fixed time that they've got to have the drink, they've got to have it at a fixed time.
Right, yeah.
But it's not into the beating or lost financial irresponsibility.
Right, oh yeah, yeah. Remember that we don't jump abruptly from stage 1 to 2 to 3. We're going a downward progressive spiral. You know, and so that, and you know, some people, I never beat anybody in my life, you know. Whereas other people I know were really violent.
Yeah, well, I mean, no problems with the law, none of the things, you know, it's kind of hidden there, like a lot, lack of sociability, a little type.
Yeah.
In other words, the spiral could hold at that second phase for a long time until a precipitating event comes.
Yeah. It's always spiraling down, but it will appear to be, you know, to have plateaued out, or to be hung at one. But you know, if you really can get total input, and it's hard to do, about what's been going on in this person's life, you'll see that it's always been a little bit, getting a little worse. Here's another thing that will throw you, and alcoholics use this themselves. You know, I can't be alcoholic because I don't drink every day. I don't drink in the morning. I only drink beer. And a great number of alcoholics, I happen to have been one, who just generally hold up. They can get out and drive cars for the later crazy stage. I mean, no, for years. When I got drunk, I carefully decided that I would go and I'd just pull a room in around me, and I didn't bother anybody. Of course, I wasn't available as a father, but I mean, I didn't go out and do bad things. You know, that society would have recognized. So I'm saying, you wouldn't have picked up. And everybody would keep you from knowing this about me. See? If you called on me, you wouldn't get in there to see me. You know, they'd just keep you away from me, and I wouldn't come out, even if I knew you were there. They didn't want you to see me that way. I might have been 5 days without a shave. So, yes, sir.
You mentioned that one on this, and using the stage that you mentioned there, you hang in there for maybe for years, and all of a sudden you're crying.
Well, you know,
Is that almost over? My understanding, you say it's an almost overnight thing.
yeah. You know, let me use myself, if I may. I started drinking when I was about 22 years old. Went through a whole tour in the Army, never touched it, because I was riding on the inertia, you know, from home. I'd never even smelled anything alcoholic. You know? But I started, you know, in college. And I went through all these stages. And until I was 37 years old. Never had, you know, couldn't stand to get high. Hated hails and farewells, you know, because we had them at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You sit around and drink some drinks, and I didn't want to do that. On I believe it was my 34th birthday, I was given a fifth of 12-year-old scotch. It was in the house a year and a half later. I didn't drink. Hardly at all. Appropriate times and places. And I don't know what tripped it. I could tell you why. You know, at one time, I would give you the reasons why I was where I was. None of which had anything to do with reality, but that's what I was convinced. You know, Vietnam was bad. Bad things happened to my family while I was gone. Brother died. Had to get out of service. And all those things were stress situations, but they didn't cause my alcoholism. The surprising thing about alcoholism or any other chemical dependency, but alcoholism is caused by alcohol.
In response to your statement about not drinking much, I've had alcoholics that really hate stuff. I don't want to taste it.
Some do, some don't. I love it. I love it. Whatever. Couldn't stand cooking share at home and those things. I'm not being funny, but I'm just one of those people. Love the drink. Love the taste. But it was a frightening thing to me, see, so that I went for years very carefully guarding when I would. Now I can remember when it became a common daily thing for me. I wasn't drinking much. I remember when it started to become a daily thing. I was about 37. But you're absolutely right. Once I started, within 3 years. That's it.
You comment on this blackout again. Talk about it in terms of going through these states. But can't you have blackout very, very early in your experimentation with the stuff?
Mm-hmm. Almost always a 100% sign of alcoholism.
Hold it right there.
If you start blacking out early on in your experience, that's a time that something can be done, you know. Or if you have someone that tells you about a blackout.
You can even have some of these things described in chronic and progressive cancer. For example, somebody might be there and they do something because they're in the process of denial. And then they feel bad and irritable about it because it's gone against their value system or how they want to be perceived, and they know they've done something illegal. At that point, somewhat conscious of it, so they can maybe act, well, maybe not hostile, but irritable or sullen.
Sure. You know, and you know, the important thing to remember is that none of these things happen all the time with everybody. You know, I've known people that never had blackouts. You know, at least, you know, they would do. He was telling about this old 80-year-old priest who just could not remember names. Could not remember. He was a Monsignor, something like that. Could not remember names. And everybody knew this, but he was such a gentle old fellow that people pretended they didn't realize that when he was going to a function that he knew certain people were going to, he pinned a little card in his coat. And if he came up to John Jones, he'd say, it's really good to see you again. I hadn't seen you in about 3 years, John. You know, everybody knew it was difficult to overlook it. He was asked to speak in commemoration of two priests, one of which was having his 25th anniversary with the church, and the other his 40th or something like that. Now these, he had both taken along as a young cleric himself and kept them along. He's known them for years. He said, it's very fine to be here today at the commemoration of Father Jones, who's been 25 years in our Lord's service. And it's especially gratifying to me to take cognizance of and to bring to your attention the great work that Father O'Hurley has had in the church these 40 years. And I'd like to wish them many more years of working in the vineyard of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I want to talk to you this hour about enabling. A very, very important concept for you to understand. By definition, enabling is to assist, accommodate, aid, befriend, encourage, support, help, take care of. Now, before I get into the primary enabler in a alcoholic family, I'd like to talk for a moment about professional enabling. Professional enabling. Very often it is we well-meaning people who get hooked into the delusional system of the alcoholic and believe what he's telling us because what he's saying makes so much sense if we don't understand it as a chemical in there. He's telling us the bad things that are happening to us and that he's trying to do this and he's trying to do that, and we tell him, look, what you need to do is start believing in yourself. You've got to come on out and take charge, and good heavens, the one thing the alcoholic believes in is himself. You know, I have a friend that says that he used to say, he'd say, I said I was an atheist. That was a lie. I thought I was God because the whole world revolved around me. See, that's the way they think. And we get hooked. As therapists, I try not to do a tremendous amount of one-on-one therapy. I like to get my people ready for groups and get them in group therapy. Why? Because I'm a recovered alcoholic. I eat, breathe, sleep, and read, and dream about alcoholism, and I can get hooked into the delusional system of alcohol. I'll catch myself thinking, hey, he's doing it to me. And I'm buying off on what he's telling me. I'm going to be helping him stay drunk if I'm not careful. Sad to say, one of the biggest professional enablers is a doctor who doesn't understand chemical dependency. So help me, given enough money and a 15-minute appointment going down Melrose Avenue, which is where most of the doctors in town have their offices, I can come out with enough drugs to put the 82nd Airborne Division down in an afternoon. And that's the fact, because I know what to say. I know what to say to get medication. I went to one doctor in the midst of my alcoholism. No, I don't remember why I went either. But you can believe the last thing I was going to talk to him about was drinking. And he went through and he said, you know, you're in pretty good physical shape. But he said, I just get the feeling you really are down. Oh, my drunk thinking really took over. You know, like I am, doc. Things aren't going well. Well, I want to write this description of once it's clear better. Gave me my medication. Gave me another medication, see. I have a drug of choice. All chemically dependent people have a drug of choice. If I can't get that for whatever the reason, I'll use whatever I can find. That will always work. See? Okay. Why do doctors do that? Because they don't understand the disease. Are they treating a symptom? This is why we stress so hard that this is the primary disease. I'll guarantee you that you cannot cure alcoholism with another drug. It's absolute, utter madness. What I can do is so strengthen that denial is to make it almost impossible to ever break through. You see? Because I'll come off a drunk, I'll go on my drug. See? I'm still not facing anything. I'm still not allowing myself to hurt. And I'll go along pretty well, and then everybody say, hey, Joe's doing great. Hadn't had a drink in 6 months. 6 months? I went a year one time without drinking. I also took enough Cinequan to put a horse down. See? I didn't need to drink. Also didn't do anything else. Got up at 3 o'clock every afternoon. All of us get caught up in the enabling role. Attorneys do by springing people, by, insisting that the alcoholic not face the consequences of his actions. And every time I bail him out and get him off, I'm not making him pay a price for what he's doing. Which is why the strongest people toward stronger laws are counselors and therapists working in the field. I mean, boy, I'd like to see them never get off. Ever. Ever get off. The best thing you can get is, a couple of weekends in jail and a suspended sentence contingent upon AA involvement in therapy. That's when we lost. When we got him, boy, you give me this guy for 6 months. I'm going to be chipping at him and working on him. See? Got to get his attention first, all right? Like the mule. Got to hit him between the head of the two before. An enabler is someone who takes responsibility for someone else's behavior. I got to tell you, that's doomed. I don't care what you're enabling. You're doomed to failure when you try to do that. And it takes two people. It's a reaction. It's progressive and very similar to chemical dependency. It's someone who buys into someone else's rationalization. The principal enabler usually in a relationship is the spouse. If there isn't one, it may be the older child. I had several in my alcoholic days. Every chemical dependent person has an enabler somewhere back in there. Okay. Enabling goes through a progressive stage just like the alcoholic does. If the alcoholic's defense is rationalization, the enabler's defense is believing it. And you buy off on the rationalization. If the alcoholic is repressing, the memory, I don't remember, what happens to the enabler? You begin to feel crazy. Because a person will stand there and look you in the eye and say, I didn't do that. You know me. You've been married to me 15 years. You know I wouldn't do that. And that happens enough times that a person gets a little punchy. Literally gets a little punchy. What's really happening? Am I going crazy? If the alcoholic projects his feelings of anger toward himself onto the enabler, the enabler's defense must be my fault. And they just buy it. It's my fault. It's something I'm doing. If the alcoholic minimizes, the enabler will say, yes, I understand. I understand what you're telling me. I know you've got to have some relief from the pressures you're up against. The alcoholic's getting drunk every night, but he's saying, it's the pressure. It's the job. It's whatever, He's minimizing what's happening to him. She's buying it or he's buying it. It can be either one now, in a relationship. I say he because it's just easier to pick a gender and stick with it. But it's no respecter of sex, gender.
We do that at the VA when we sober some guy after 45, 50 times. And he doesn't get involved in any kind of program.
Sure. If the alcoholic is irresponsible, then the enabler's defense is to be very responsible, to protect. See? It's a reaction requiring two people, and they start a ballet with each other. And as pastors, you've seen that. You've seen the enabler. Then they go, from the protection stage that I've just been talking about into a controlling stage. The enabler takes over all responsibility in the family. And brother, you'll see this right down the line. They feel inadequate, guilty, and they start projecting themselves, their own feelings about themselves, back onto the alcoholic or onto the children. And they sincerely believe, I am responsible. If I could be better, if only there was something I could, I'm not doing something right. That's what happens to the enabler. It's all my fault, and they go into what we call the codependency role. And let me tell you, folks, that person at that point is as emotionally ill as the alcoholic. Vern Johnson says they're mirror images. They're mirror images of each other. The alcoholic or the chemically dependent persons, get this please, the alcoholic's relationship, primary relationship in the world is to his bottle. It exceeds anything that has to do with people. And the codependence relationship is as to the alcoholic is to the bottle. So that she is or he is in total concert, being pulled by the strings of this deluded, crazy, manipulating person. That's why you don't succeed when you go in and try to talk with the family. Dear heaven, Jesus beat up as he is. They read it that there is no way out. And my success that I've had in other therapists that I've talked to is doing an intervention with the spouse, the enabler. You can't get to the drunk at that point. No way. You've got to get to her or him and intervene. Okay. The results of going through the protection stage for the alcoholic, then the controlling stage, and then into the codependency, results in the codependent or the enabler's feeling life getting repressed deeper and deeper. They do believe it's all their fault. And their feeling life is that they have low self-esteem, guilt, shame, self-doubt, embarrassment, inadequacy, rejection. Isn't that exactly what the alcoholic that I've described has? You know, inadequate feelings, guilt, shame. Okay. Enabling is such hard work. They're the transportation coordinator, the controller of all situations and people and families. Controller of the children's feelings, all the finances. If it gets done, the enabler tries to do it. You know. Martyr. It's so lonely for the enabler. Why do they stay in this situation? First of all, they're deluded about what's really going on. They're in reaction to the actions of the chemically dependent person. Remember, it takes two to tango. You got a chemically dependent person, you got an enabler, and the one is reacting to the other. Back and forth, back and forth. And it really gets crazy. You know? They feel so inadequate and they have such low self-worth. It's just too hard to change things. I've tried before and nothing has happened. What's this poor person done? They've poured booze out. Then they've gone and gotten it. Anything's better than living with a bear. And let me tell you something. If you want to see an ill person, the illest person in the world is what we call an AA, a person that's dry but not sober. I mean, you want to see somebody that's, you know, just, you know, that anything will wipe them out. So, you know, in absolute desperation, the enabler will go out and buy the booze for him. Anything's better than that. That's the kind of trap they get in. Pouring it out, buying it. Pouring it out, buying it. And obviously this makes no rational sense, right? Rational people won't do things like that. But they do. They're also in a state of constant fear. What's going to happen to the children? What's going to happen to the family? Are we going to lose the home? What's going to happen to the job? If he loses his job, my God, we're just barely holding it together now. It costs a lot of money to stay drunk. Not only do I drink away money, you know, I wouldn't open mail. I'm serious. Oh, mail meant was bad news. Even reached the point I wouldn't answer the phone and go to the door. And I'm not unique. So, you know, the actions of this crazy drunk person in the home are such that financially they're down the chute. The children are going berserk on them, and we'll talk about that in the family system. And, you know, she's saying, what if he's late for work? What if he loses his job? If I don't take care of things, nobody will. Somebody's got to do all of this. What will the neighbors say? What will mom and dad say if they know I've married a drunk? What am I going to tell the children? How are we going to survive? Fear. There's a payoff, too. And the payoff is that, you know, however distorted their reasons, there's a good feeling at being responsible. You know? They like being up in the relationship, being full control of everything. They don't have to ask anyone what to do. You know? They're in total control. They're usually pretty high achievers. They're in this position of power. They like it. They get a lot of praise. She's a saint. I don't know how she does it. One kid's in jail. The other one's over here. Husband's out drunk all the time. She doesn't realize everybody knows this now. Okay? That's the delusional aspect of it. Because what we're all trying to do is hide this. But she gets a lot of praise anyway. You're a strong person. You're a good mother or a good father, you know.
Why wouldn't her friends think that the enabler, if he or she wasn't an alcoholic, seeing them buy stuff, as you said, to enable her? You know, if I saw somebody at a liquor store, I'd think that that person was getting it for themselves instead of...
Oh, they get as clever as buying it. Mr. Drunk does. It's like stashing, you know. Every chemically dependent person has a stash, you know. And that's an indication of craziness right there. Father Martin says, you know, would you think it was weird if your wife kept her milk in the toilet tank? Water tank in the toilet? That might be a little strange, right? But alcoholics routinely do things like that. You know?
It's hard to buy it.
Sure.
The result of the payoff is that sometimes the enabler gets upset when the person starts getting better.
Oh, you betcha.
Devastated.
Oh, you betcha. I found a diary. I was allowed to read a diary of a lady. It said, and this isn't the exact quotes, excuse the bad word. The only time I'm in charge is when this bastard's down. And when he went into treatment, she split.
Doesn't that happen a lot of times in a recovering alcoholic family?
You betcha.
Because the alcoholic gets stronger and she can't make pickup on that little weakling out there in front of her. Or he is.
If we don't get everybody involved, we minimize the chances of the alcoholic's recovery. And if we don't get everybody involved, it's to deny sustenance and treatment to a very sick person. Believe me, that spouse who is enabling and codependent is hurting, is bad, and sometimes worse than the alcoholic, but is bad certainly. He doesn't have the drug to kill the pain. Now, very often they'll get off on their own drug. They'll go to a doctor. What are they displaying? Anxiety, depression. What do you do for anxiety, depression? And it's very, very common, though not the rule, but it's very common to see the wife, you know, the spouse on Valium and hooked on Valium, and the husband on booze, and the children all on something. God bless them, they're all dying, you know. Okay, there are 6 steps of recovery for the enabler. First of all, you got to unhook from this process. You've got to get loose from that. One of the things that we start trying to get the person to do is to detach from what's going on. I cannot make somebody else sober, neither can you. I can't get myself sober by myself. And it's totally unrealistic to think that I can get somebody else sober. What I can do is stop being responsible for what's going on with this person. Okay? We use 6 steps: education and knowledge of the disease of alcoholism and enabling. And it's incredible how many people just don't know anything about it. They don't understand what's been going on with them. And it's amazing when you start using various lectures and films, and you know, you hear the person say, "Aha, wow, that's been happening to me." You know, we start building self-worth by making them do their own work, make their own decisions, and we try to get them into long-term support involvement. The best and I know being Al-Anon. What do they learn in Al-Anon? They learn they aren't alone. See? They learn that they are not alone. And in this regard, they're exactly like the chemical dependent